So last video, I was trying to better describe the 12 houses. I realized it's kind of harder to understand than I thought, because when I first started, it was hard. But basically, I was trying to use an analogy of a car, because there's 12 houses, right? Um, and okay, here. Each house in the zodiac wheel has an archetype that will remain the same no matter what your first house is. Your first house is determined by the time of birth, your time of birth, the time that you were born. So, depending on what time you were born, your first house will start at a different point than someone else's. So, let's say I'm born on, this is not my birthday, but let's just say I was born on the 12th, or today, the 2nd of March. Let's say I was born at 12 a.m. and that became Pisces rising. And then someone else was born on the same day at 2 a.m. and they became a Taurus rising. Person A, their first house will be Pisces, but person B, their first house will be Taurus. So you will have this circle with 12 pieces in it, and one person's first house will be down here, the other person's first house will be down here, and the second house will be the next sign. So for the Pisces person, their first house will be Pisces, their second house will be Aries, and then Taurus, Gemini, so on. But the person who was born with the Taurus rising, their first house will be Taurus, then it'll be Gemini for the second, the third will be Cancer, and so on. But basically, even though they have two different first houses, both of their first houses carry that Aries-like energy, or that when we talked about what the 12 houses meant in the previous video, the first house represents the appearance, the outward appearance and personality, self-awareness. So someone with a Pisces rising might look very dreamy. They might be a person who looks very sweet and soft-natured, but the Taurus rising person might be someone that looks maybe very calming and grounded and not easily moved, very like settled in who they are. The Pisces person might look not so settled in who they are. They might look like they go with the wind, like they just go with one idea to the next, because the water, the ocean is always flowing, and so that Pisces person might look emotional, but the Taurus person might look more grounded, and they might be uplifting. Another thing I like to focus on when I'm looking at the signs in astrology are the seasons that the signs occur in, because that reflects on how it manifests as well. Like a Taurus rising or sun or moon or whatever you have Taurus in, that energy will carry the energy of spring, of someone who's always looking for a fresh start, someone who's optimistic. But if you go to the other end, the polar opposite, and look at Scorpio, it's happening in the fall, where the weather is going from hot to cold, and that person might be very they might be more cautious, because we're going into the darker side of the year, so they understand that there is a darkness that's present in this world, and they approach life knowing that. But Taurus might understand that there's a brightness in this world, and they might approach life knowing that we should look at the brighter side of things, and Scorpio might look at the darker side, because it's about going underground. So yeah, that's kind of how the houses work. The houses work in a way that the archetype of the house never changes. The first house energy will never change, no matter what sign you have in the first house. but the sign itself is like the flavor of it. So if you had first house as Virgo, the appearance is gonna of that person, the outer shell will be flavored like in a Virgo way. So they will like seem very work oriented. They might look very like they have everything together and organized, and someone who's just really service oriented. But if you have a person who has their first house as Scorpio, then their appearance will be dark. They might even try to portray themselves as a dark person, and that might not be the case. They could be an Aries sun with the Scorpio rising, and Aries is a pretty bright sign. Like, they don't always like dark stuff, but with a Scorpio, it's like having the sunniest person who's just super bubbly putting on this dark trench coat, and you will never know how sunny they are unless they remove that coat. And that coat is what you have to get through. It's the rising, the first house is like the outer layer of someone that you will associate with them unless you know them on a deeper, more intimate level. So yeah, knowing the 12 houses helps you understand what the rising sign is, or the ascendant. Ascendant and rising mean the same thing. It just means the first house in most cases. Yeah. Your first house can share. No, I'm not gonna say that. I don't want to confuse anybody. But yeah, I'll make another video. The next video that I make I will start to talk about each house more in depth for the rising signs. So I guess this series will be about rising signs, and it'll just show you what each house represents.